Today for the Choices podcast, we have a special guest with us. We have Miss Bridget Long. She's a magnet lead here in Clayton County Public Schools. Hi, Miss Long.
Hi, Dr. Reese. I'm so excited to talk to you guys today.
I'm very excited to talk to you as well. You do some pivotal work for the district, and I think it's going to be important that everyone who's listening gets to know a little bit about some of the things that you do. So let's start out with some comparisons because I like to have a lot of fun, right?
Okay.
So I'm going to start with one that I did with other listeners and other interviewers. Pancakes or waffles?
Waffles.
Waffles, why?
Mm-hmm. Because I like the Belgian waffles where you can put the strawberries and whipped cream on top.
Yes. And blueberries and some whipped cream.
All the fruit. Yeah.
Absolutely. I love it. Crayons or colored pencils?
Crayons or colored pencils?
Uh-huh.
Crayons.
Why?
I don't know why. I actually have never thought about that before, but crayons. Probably because that's what I used when I was little.
Yeah. So I always loved colored pencils. So when you're in kindergarten, first grade, they don't give you colored pencils. They give you crayons, right? And I would color and I can't stay in the lines. And then about second or third grade, they gave us colored pencils. And I was like, oh my God, heaven.
So my mom was a really great colorer. So we had lots of coloring books growing up, and she would like outline with the crayon, and then she'd color inside what she outlined. And so, yeah, I think it's just crayons make me think of my mom.
Wow. That's deep. So let's go deeper.
Okay.
Purified water or sparkling water?
I will only drink sparkling water if I get to put Crystal Light in it. So it's flavored.
I have never tried that.
It tastes like soda.
I am going to have to try that. That sounds like an escape of being able to drink soda without having it. So
right. That's why I started doing it.
I had never heard of that. Okay, tell us where you're from and how did you end up here in Georgia?
Okay. So I'm originally from Illinois.
Okay.
I grew up in a very small town, 2.5 hours west of Chicago.
Okay.
So my town had one high school in it, one middle school in it, and like 4 elementary schools. I grew up on a farm.
Really?
Yes. So the farm I grew up on did not have animals. We just had, my dad farmed beans and corn.
Okay.
And sweet
That's
corn.
Fair.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair.
And then my mom had a garden for quite a while when we were growing up, until she started working. So my mom stayed at home with us until I was 14, and then she went to work as a secretary. I'm the first one in my family to go to college.
First generation grad.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. I went to college in Indiana, northern Indiana. So I was 2.5 hours east of Chicago where I went to school. So basically my high school trips and my college trips were all to see things in Chicago. So I went to a small liberal arts college.
Okay.
I grew up Mennonite, and in the town where I was, there were not very many Mennonites. There was just the one church. And so I was like one of like 3 people in my high school that were Mennonite.
Oh my God.
And so I wanted to have a college experience where I was around a lot of people that were from the same faith. So I went to a small Mennonite college. Yeah. And as part of that, my college's culture was to service was very important. And so all of us who went to that college had to do some kind of steady service term, and they sent us to different countries that tied into whatever language we wanted to learn. So I spent a semester in the Ivory Coast, where so the first half of the semester we lived in the city with a family. Mm-hmm. And learning about the culture and learning about taking French classes. And then we spent the second half of the semester all spread out around the country. And so me and 2 other people from our group, we went to a small village that worked with Liberian refugees. So they tried to tie in our major with whatever our service was. So I worked with a daycare for Liberian refugees through the International Rescue Committee.
I have known you at least a year now, and I didn't know any of that. That is phenomenal. And I have other comments, but I'll save those for
okay.
an off-the-grid conversation. But that is fabulous.
Yeah. So I think that experience was part of the reason that I was willing to move to wherever a job would lead me when I graduated college. So when I graduated, I applied basically to anywhere with an orchestra program because my background, I went to school for music education. And so orchestra is one of those jobs where if I was going to stay where my college was, I wasn't going to have a job doing orchestra. I would have to do something else with music because there's not very many orchestras around.
Right.
So I was applying anywhere. I decided that I wanted to live near a big city. I wanted to move someplace warmer. And so I applied in San Francisco. I applied in Myrtle Beach. And I applied here. I was basically applying to anywhere that had an orchestra opening. So I also applied in Des Moines, Iowa, which is where my parents wanted me to go. I did not want to go there. So Clayton County was actually the first school system that called me for an interview.
Okay.
The fine arts director at the time was absolutely amazing. He called me, set up a time for me to come down. He set up, it was multiple people of us interviewing on the same day. He aligned it with when they were doing performance evaluation for orchestra. And at that time, performance evaluation for orchestra was happening at the Clayton County Performing Arts Center.
Get out of here.
So when we came down here, we met, there were like 4 of us. We met at his office. He took us to what a high school might look like, what a middle school might look like if we chose, and he told us we could choose. We could do high school if we wanted or middle school. So where I grew up, the orchestra teacher did every grade level.
Right.
So I was like, wait a second, you're telling me I can do just middle school, which is what I really wanted to do. So I interviewed with the only middle school principals who had openings for the next year. There were a couple schools that had that were, I think Mondays Mill High School was new that year, and I think there were a couple other new schools. Anyway, the person I interviewed with was a former orchestra teacher, and then he took us out for lunch, and then took us to the Performing Arts Center to see orchestras perform, and I was sold. So growing up, I'd only performed in gyms because my high school was so small. So all my concerts were in the gym. In college, they had not built their music center yet, so all of my college performances were in gyms. And so I was like, you get a whole stage and you guys can just like use this whenever you do concerts. So Clayton County sold me, and it was warmer than where I was from, and it was near a big city.
Look at that. Wow.
Yep. So my drive home the next day, the school that I wanted to go to, which was Adamson Middle School, they called me on my drive back to Indiana and offered me the job.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you started here in Adamson Middle.
I did.
Wow. And it still exists today. So look at that.
So I was there for 4 years, and then the opportunity came for me to apply for MD Roberts. And I decided to take the opportunity to go there.
You had about 30 cool points before this interview. I think you're up to about 50 now.
Oh, well, thank you.
Amazing. And I know you did some recent travel, and you had a chance to go, was it Ireland?
I did. Over the summer, I went to Ireland.
Tell us, what was that experience like? What
it was amazing. I love to travel, and so everywhere is on my list. But Ireland was not actually at the top of my list. Okay. But it was a cheaper option at the time. I went with Go Ahead Tours. I was originally going to go to Asia, and I had started paying on the trip like 2 years ahead of time. Well, in that 2 years, I got this job, and so I was going to be working during the summer, and it was really stressing me out to have to take off like 2 weeks of work. So I took all of the money I had paid towards the Asia trip. I was able to cover the cost of going to Ireland and didn't have to make any more payments. So that's how I ended up going to Ireland. And so I did it with a tour bus, and I was like, that'll be good because I don't want to have to drive on the left side of the road. Yeah. And I'd heard the roads were maybe a little scary in some parts, being like really small. Anyway, I decided going with a tour group would be my best option. And I loved it so much. It exceeded my expectations, maybe because I didn't have any going in. It was so beautiful. And then Galway. So as a musician, it was like so amazing. So we went to all the pubs have like live music, but a lot of them were playing like covers. So I didn't want to go to Ireland and see just covers of American music.
Right.
So we found a place that was doing like the traditional Irish fiddling, where they just up at the top of the bar, they all just like form a group and start playing their instruments. And it was really cool to be able to see that. We also did a musical pub crawl when we were in Dublin, and got to see that the two people that were doing it were showing like the traditional Irish music and giving kind of history. So music history was like
it's
my
big deal.
favorite subject out of all of my music classes, besides playing my instrument, of course. But music history is my favorite. So hearing the history of Irish music was really cool, and then seeing the people play it, and so Ireland, I would go back.
You know, I always think, because you have this wealth of experience in music education, and you've educated students, worked with large groups of age groups, right? How has that translated into your work with the district? Now you're a magnet lead, you get to do some very unique work with specific schools, and I know you've snuck in a few art schools on your list there. So how has that work translated or supported your journey through district work?
So one of the reasons why I applied for this job is because I was the magnet lead at Roberts.
Okay.
And I liked getting to work with the parents. I liked getting to work with helping them through the process. And then I liked being able to talk about arts integration. And so I really felt like this was an opportunity to help more families be a part of the magnet programs and help teachers with integrating the arts into their classes. Little did I know that I would be doing lots of different themes for schools. So originally when I took the job, I thought I was just going to be working with the art schools. So this is really, this position has pushed me in many ways that I never imagined.
Wow.
But I've been able to figure out how to, from a music standpoint, figure out how we can do more of that into the classroom. So like now this year I get to work with Stillwell, and Stillwell has been great with having me come in and do some arts integration, professional development with the teachers, which I have loved. Going into classrooms and seeing the arts that they're doing in their academic classrooms has been really cool. And then, of course, the orchestra teacher has let me come in a few times to do some things in his room, which so I still get my orchestra fix.
Yeah, I heard you were subbing one day.
I did. So it's still I did their after school rehearsal twice because the orchestra teacher is currently out on paternity leave.
Oh wow!
So the experience was so great getting to work with the students, and I had a great time.
You know, in music world, we call that a clinician.
Right.
Excellent stuff.
And then at Elite, the orchestra teacher there has asked me a few times to come in and help. So Elite is one of my other schools, and they pushed me in a different way because they're Cambridge, and I didn't know about Cambridge until I started this job. So It has been interesting to learn about that theme, but then also to have the orchestra teacher ask me for advice when I come in. It's been nice to be able to continue to share my experience of teaching orchestra for 20 years with him.
And you get to kind of further the work that you are already doing. Thank you so much for interviewing with me today. Guys, Mrs. Bridget Long is a phenomenal leader here in Clayton County Schools. Do you have any closing words to share with our listeners?
I just hope that if you are not involved with exploring our magnet options in Clayton County, that you take some time to visit our website to learn about all of the phenomenal programs that we have. There are so many opportunities for the students here, and I just want everybody to know about it. So we have so many different themes. We have arts, we have STEM, we have STEAM, we have, when you get into high school, you have a little bit more, you drill down a little bit more into the STEM fields. So you got medical sciences, you have engineering, you have aviation. There's early college in Cambridge. There's just so many opportunities that there is something that will fit for your child. And for my own children, they're part of the magnet programs. And I love the experience for them. My son is at MD Roberts, and he is, if you think of a fine arts kid, he is a fine arts kid. So he's getting to be able to play multiple instruments. He is helps out with technical theater. So he's been able to explore all of these different fields that interest him. And so it's not to say that MD Roberts is the only place to go, because we also, I forgot to mention, we have dual language too. So students who want to be bilingual doing Spanish and English. I mean, there's just so many opportunities. There is some place for you in Clayton County in one of our magnet programs. We also have fairs throughout the year. So if you have not had an opportunity to go to a fair, we always have one in October and we have one in February. And we also do a virtual one in September. And then follow us on Instagram and Facebook.
Yes, yes. I'm going to sum that up with one phrase that is often used by our superintendent. We are building a better tomorrow today.
That's right.
Have a great day, guys. Hi, listeners. It's Dr. Bryan Reese in the Office of School Choice and Magnet Programs. Today, we are here with a special guest, Miss Nachaé Jones, and she is the owner of the Jonesy's Place as well as the Jonesy Foundation. And so we're going to just jump right in. How are you today?
I am doing well, Dr. Reese. How are you?
I'm doing extremely well. I'm so glad that you took a time out of your schedule, which I know is extremely busy, to come meet with me. But I wanted people to know about your business and what you're doing in Clayton County so that our families are aware of some of the opportunities that are available for them.
Absolutely. Yes, I appreciate that.
Yeah. So let's start out with a few comparisons.
These okay.
Will be a little funny. We'll see how they go. Okay. Waffles or pancakes?
Waffles.
Why?
I love that it kind of has the pockets for the syrup.
No one has ever said that.
Yes.
No one has ever said that.
Yes.
That might be why I like waffles as well.
Yes, it's compartmentalized and it helps,
And if you split it, you have multiple directions.
Absolutely.
It's like a grid.
Yes. There's some equilibrium. Like the syrup is always kind of spread out. The pancake, it just runs over, and then most of the syrup is on a plate.
I asked someone the other day, was it that they like pure water or sparkling water?
Oh, pure water. Absolutely.
No sparkling.
I don't have to have it. I think sometimes it can, provide just a little nice kick depending on what you're eating. Okay. But pure water, if I'm wanting the experience of just feeling like I'm getting hydrated, I feel like the carbonation kind of takes away from that. So I'm going to do pure water. I want it pure.
Okay. Two polar opposites.
Yeah.
Watermelon or oranges?
Oranges.
Oh, I would say watermelon.
And I think it's culture. I mean, being from the north in Philadelphia, I mean, I didn't get a whole lot of exposure to watermelons. Now that I'm in Atlanta, right, in Georgia, and I have family further south where it's known as the watermelon capital. They're just everywhere. But I didn't get a whole lot of exposure. So
we've got to get you on some watermelon. If someone owns a watermelon stand, we have to get Nachaé a part of the watermelon family. Well, thank you so much again for joining us. Tell us a little bit about your company, and let's start with talking about who you are first and how you ended up being here, and then leading to how you started the company here.
Okay, excellent. So I'm originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, as I mentioned, and I actually found myself in Atlanta once being accepted to Spelman. I decided to stay once I graduated, and it became much more like home than back home in Philadelphia. And I just began a journey of matriculation as the different forms of my artistry was birthed, from painting to dancing. I was doing photography in Africa, and so many forms of the arts, which became paired with my background and my love for psychology and philosophy. So, my profession is in the background as being a counselor, being a therapist, and I really found my niche being in the place of utilizing visual, applied, sculptural arts, and pairing it with mental health education, social, emotional learning skills, and things like emotional intelligence.
Wow. Maybe I should have asked you about crayons or color.
Oh, yeah.
That is so much to unpack.
It is. It is.
So how did you turn this passion into the work that you're doing in the community? Because you distinctively have a space where you're able to cultivate each of those methods within one organization to really impact what's happening in people's individual lives as well as their family lives, because I know you had some group stuff too. So how did that translate into what you're doing now in Clayton?
Yes. So funny enough, I was studying psychology in Europe. I was in Copenhagen, Denmark, and so I was there studying psychology as well as Milan, Italy. And so pairing the arts and that mental wellness was something that I was seeing pretty frequently abroad. And I knew that coming back to the States, that as an innate artist, I didn't want to go a traditional route as maybe an art teacher, right? And I knew I also didn't want to take the route of having just a private practice. And so my prayer, right, and I sought to kind of complement what many of us hear as like art therapy, right?
Yes.
But this is more of a supportive group. So Clayton County, I mean, I have just grown a heart, not just through serving in the county, but, so many municipalities, I've been able to see the younger version of myself and being what I once needed. I see the potential. I see the momentum that we are continuing to obtain. And then I see the need.
Yeah.
I see the need, Dr. Reese, that sometimes was present in my life or that I witnessed vicariously through family and friends. And so when I thought about having a brick and mortar, my thought was I could go anywhere. Where should I be? Right? The thing that is good and perfect. I can go anywhere and it's good, but I want to be where it's perfect. And so it became very evident through prayer and through relationships and through conversation that I was called to have a brick and mortar right on Main Street in Forest Park and to serve the entire county. And so in this studio, in Jonesy's place, we have this hub of healing.
Okay.
And the form that we decide to use are the arts, right? Individuals have so many different modalities, and as an artist and as someone who understands that art within itself is therapeutic, right? And then you have the understanding that while many of us are artists, sometimes we're stuck in a place where our art heals and serves everyone but us.
Oh, that is so true.
The guidance, the intentionality of sometimes creating art that may have some undertones of things or emotions, of thoughts, of experiences that are repressed and suppressed, things like color usage, body language, things that are expressive through the art. So now we are then knowledgeable. Now we have a piece of understanding through maybe I am painting and I'm using a certain color repeatedly, or that my body language, how I'm painting it, is revealing something. And then maybe because of some social constructs, maybe because of fear or even shame or guilt, that we do have the tools to articulate, but we're afraid to. So maybe I can write a poem and say that maybe I had an experience with fear or anxiety and I'm scared to verbalize it, but I can make it in a poem. And maybe that can start the conversation.
So is this like an organic experience where you come in and we sort of assess your needs of where you are, and then we determine what are your best routes? Or is it more of, here's this outlined schedule of what's happening? Because I sense it's a little bit of both.
Exactly.
I'm trying to make sense of how this works. So how does that work? When they come in and, I'm new to this experience and I need this guidance, how do we determine where we are and which route is best for me?
Well, you hit it. You hit the nail on the head. It is a little bit of both.
Okay.
So I want to make sure there's always some structure and guidance, right? Because without it, sometimes the lack of intentionality, it can dilute the objective of the experience. But I also want to make sure that while we are in a world where sometimes our autonomy is taken from us, that we can still protect it, and we want to keep it or cultivate a form of it being healthy, right? So typically my sessions always have 3 goals. Individuals will come to me because maybe they have an identified group who are working through trauma, or they're just wanting to sharpen some social skills, or they're saying, hey, it's my birthday, I'm looking for something unconventional, but I want to be empowered doing it, right? So my 3 objectives, the first is always education. I will always lead as an expert, as a professional who has done the homework. We're beyond assuming, Dr. Reese. I had a student once that I was asking about empathy, and they said, well, I don't want to have empathy, right? And I said, well, why? And they said, well, that's associated with being sad and being dark and being heavy. And I would kind of digging a little more, and they were kind of synonymously using the term empath, which is used in a very viral sense on social media. Right. So we had some educational understanding, and it's not just the young people, but as adults, SEL wasn't a thing in our generation, right? So either we weren't taught it, or we were, and sometimes life and our advancement causes us to compromise what is the perfect thing to say and do. So it's always a refresher. So education. Let's make sure that I'm not just throwing out terms like imposter syndrome and individuals just not in their head and they have no idea what I'm talking about. I want it to be applicable. I want to make sure that individuals can regurgitate, that it makes sense, right? So education. And then the experience where we can unplug. We want, unless it's an emergency, we are like a no phone zone. Let's listen to therapeutic music. Let's have a specific art form. And I've educated you. Now it's your turn to work through this. And then you're going to experience things. I have all different type of releases where individuals, they find themselves becoming emotional, or there's some triggers that kind of began to reveal themselves, or a sense of peace. We have so much stimulation, Dr. Reese, from our phones and social media, that there's a peace that comes from just being still and being mindful.
Just being away from it all.
Mindfulness.
Yes.
We are teaching mindfulness as if it's something new.
Yeah.
We are called to be mindful.
Yeah.
Right? We wake up, we reach for our phone, and the stimulation is present.
Okay, so we were on experience. So
yes.
Tell me more.
So after the experience, there's community.
Okay.
Especially during COVID, we had a heightened experience of just social isolation. And there's so much healing, I believe, that comes from just being seen and heard. So the ability to have this artwork that now I can give it a narrative, I can give it a voice. Sometimes as artists, we have our artwork in museums, we have it in exhibits, and individuals can speculate what they think we mean, but you never really know until you hear from the artist. Sometimes we can be a little shy, we can kind of, want to go to the background, but it gives us the ability to have ownership. That I created this art form, and you can share what you feel comfortable with sharing, but I own this. It may be ugly, it may be traumatic, but it's mine. And I'm committed to the journey of life being life, as long as it's life, that I am on the journey of wellness and advancement. And so when we have the community, that I see you, that I honor you, that I value you, that my voice, maybe it was taken and now I'm gaining it back, right? Or maybe I'm in a war with others, is it intrinsic and extrinsic, and I'm in a real war where maybe I'm having a negative self-talk, but through this community experience, I can refer to my art, Dr. Reese, and I can share a narrative of positivity, and I just shut down the intrinsic war. I shut down the external stimulation that goes against my truth. So those are always the three goals, right? That you are educated, you're empowered, you have some type of creative experience where you are mindful, and then community. I see them. They may have different backgrounds. We may be more different than we are alike, but we are human. We value and love one another, and we are made, whether you're an introvert, or extrovert, or an ambivert. For those who don't know, the ambivert is a little mixture of both. Regardless of where you stand in your temperament, we are always made for connectivity. So we have to get back to healthy connectivity.
You mentioned community, and the social scientist in me went crazy because I was thinking many people define community as the house that is in my neighborhood and the neighbors who live in front of me. But on a social construct conversation, it's the people who share identities and practices with me, right?
That's right.
And so how important is it, because Clayton County is in the crux of becoming such an international community, and right now there are these divided ethnicities who have very distinct practices, but there aren't any sharing across communities as we would like them to be. That's one of our goals as a school district, is to see Black culture infiltrated in the Asian sector, Asian culture infiltrated in the African American sector. The same with our students who are Hispanic. How do you find community to be a double-edged sword in making sure that people make this progress in life and work toward greater efficiency in their lives?
Absolutely. Dr. Reese, I would go as far to say that I believe it's really a matter of life or death.
Oh.
The term division is happening at a large and micro and macro level. So what we're seeing across racial divide, we're seeing within local communities, we're seeing it within households.
Yeah.
Right? Where sometimes individuals may be living under the same physical core, but you could be present and not be active. Right? And so when we think about different devices that come to separate, whether it's gossip, if you're not connected and you're not talking, there's so many lies and things that are created because of the lack of understanding and connectivity. Absolutely. Right? When you think about our ability to have so many different strengths, we have so many personality, career strengths, and while some of us, Dr. Reese, like you and I, have done a whole lot professionally, we just can't bear it all.
Yeah, it's so true.
So in the midst of the body that we're needing, I mean, Forest Park has some part, but then so does Riverdale.
Absolutely.
And so the moment that, we become divided, and sometimes it's not just the what, I look at the why. So I'm not saying I'm seeing this in the county particularly, but at large, every country and every continent has these divides. And so it really is just an evil that is present in every sector. And we have to understand that it's not just, that's just the way it is. We have to take a personal responsibility to bridge that gap. And Jonesy's place is one of them. One of my assignments in the district is helping bridge the gap in my multicultural communities. And where we can acknowledge cultures, we can acknowledge our differences, ways that we are similar, and in a place of celebration. As humans, sometimes we are naturally negative. There's a term in psychology called rumination. And a rumination, like there's about an 85, 90% that shows that throughout our day, that's typically the percentage that we are ruminating. And rumination is not just thinking about something, it is typically the process of rethinking something that's negative. So that tells us that typically the majority of our thinking, our self-interaction, more so stays on the side of negativity, which means we have to be intentional with where we want to be. And so division kind of falls into that. So now that we're having the conversation, the light bulb should go off. What can I do to make sure we are on the side of unity? We have to work for unity. And so once we understand that it's something that may not come natural, offense sometimes come natural, but conflict resolution may not always. Things like, anger and frustration, some things come natural, but when you have to be mature, which is why when babies come out, they say it's mine. No, mine. No, we don't have to teach young people to say that.
They grab it automatically.
They grab it. But then we have a conversation, we share. This is your sibling. This is your peer. So when you think of how we are naturally built, but God makes sure we have the tools to overcome, and conversations like this being one of them, and that at so many levels within our households, within our local community, at our state, as we continue to advance, that we are saying there are bridges to be gapped always. Sometimes they get a little weak. We need to redefine them. We got to come in with some more concrete and some more metal and redefine and strengthen these things. Sometimes people have damaged them. Sometimes it's just time that damage them. Nothing lasts forever, right? But we have to maintain. Could you imagine some of them bridges we drive over? If they don't come in and reinforce, we are in trouble.
Yeah. Or dipped.
Right? Right. We are. So community is the same way.
Yeah.
It's not always tangible physically, but we have to see because sometimes we talk about mental wellness and we forget our emotional wellness. Dr. Reese. And so our emotional wellness depends on unity.
I love the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
I think I'm bubbling on the inside because this is something that we know communities need, but often they aren't readily seeking these types of resources, even when they know they're available. I often say if you offer quinoa and rice, people will typically grab rice because it's more familiar.
That's right.
But this unfamiliar is where people should be digging in on, because it will help children, it will help the adults, and it makes us a better community. So tell us a little bit about your foundation and some of your goals that you have for Clayton County as a community, because you're a business owner here.
Yes.
So what are some of your goals that you hope to help Clayton County accomplish this year or in the next 5 years using your foundation or your business?
All right, that was loaded.
Okay.
But exciting, right? I love how you mentioned the priority. You think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Sometimes nonprofit organizations or for-profits that may provide some of the housing and some of the security in that regard, they may possibly get more of the attention than organizations or programs like this one that focuses on like the esteem and the self-awareness, right? But sometimes programming like this focuses on why there may be some issues with the other areas. So for example, if there's someone who's having money management, issues because of trauma or experience as a young person, maybe there are organizations that will help with rental assistance or housing, but a program like ours can figure out why we're doing what we're doing and we're finding ourselves in that way. So leveling the field of priority is one big thing. And so with our for-profit, of course, we are serving all populations from pre-K to senior citizens. And our nonprofit, the Jonesy Foundation, is doing the same similar work, but we are actively seeking sponsorship where we can really make sure that we are supporting those who are in need for whatever reason, that we can cover costs and make sure that we are carrying the weight of the burden that we are all experiencing. And so I think as we continue to move forward, I am involved in not just the educational sector, but also governmental and faith-based, so many compartments that allow me to serve the needs, the wants of individuals. And so programming, continuing to roll out everything for senior citizens, whether it's Wisdom Wednesday with the bingo, where the seniors can come and feel seen and be able to multiply the best parts of themselves. Our young people enrichment programs, where we have young artists who can creatively express themselves, but they can put empowerment to their art, right? That this art is not just a free-for-all, but my art is intentional. We have field trips. We have all different experiences where individuals from Clayton County can come, become poured into, and leave stronger than how they came.
Yes. Listen, you are doing some phenomenal work in Clayton County.
Thank you.
It's almost hard to believe that this type of service is offered in this community, but it's so needed, and I know you know that. That's why you're doing it.
Yes.
And so I encourage you to keep it going.
Thank you.
And I love that you're partnered with the Office of School Choice and the Magnet programs, because we're trying to do the very work that you're doing inwardly and externally for students. We're doing it in the educational sector, and our approach is to do it holistically. And so I love the fact that we're working together to make this happen for our kids.
Absolutely.
So what is something that you want to share with the community in closing? It could be anything, something you might have coming up, or it could be some encouraging words that you just want to leave out there. What's something you want to share with me?
We have a full lineup, so I don't want to forget anything.
Okay.
But of course, I would love to really get connected with individuals. Our website, www.jonesy's place, so Jonesy, Jones with an Y, S, place.art, or look us up on Facebook, Instagram, Jonesy's Place. And so we have so many different programs that can meet needs, and we are open to not assume what we think you need, but that you can connect us. Someone reached out to me last week and they said, we need something for caregivers. We are working diligently, but we are tired. And so I said, well, my team, we are on it. You will see a caregiver event. So we are here to make sure that we are 10 toes down in the community. And I want us all to remain encouraged, right? As a county, of course, because everyone has a narrative, an opinion. Everybody has one. But, it's like the butterfly effect. Not being discouraged by, well, I'm just doing it. And if I don't have the momentum that I think I have, will I really make a difference? And so the truth is that if we can just flap our own wings, And if this, the wind that is developed from me just being obedient from the conviction that is my truth, and that Dr. Reese, because you were obedient, this platform is present. And the times that we've interconnected with one another, your consistency, your professionalism, your excellence, your due diligence has paved the way where you've broken some molds, right? That some glass ceilings have been broken, that individuals like myself, you can pass the baton in a certain regard and we keep moving. Right? So with that trajectory, I just want to encourage everyone, whether it's an individual or a corporate setting, that you continue to flap your wings. And you may not feel like your wind is gaining momentum, but there are some other butterflies that are flapping their wings. And before you know it, that wind gains momentum and you will look up and there will be a different experience. And that doesn't just apply with Clayton County and the school district, but that applies in our personal lives. There's a lot of discouragement. There's a lot of grief that we're experiencing. And some of it is not subjective. It's not just someone having a pity party, but objectively, we are in a tough spot as a world, as a universe, right? And so we want to make sure that we are having this optimism and this hope in our personal lives, and that way it can matriculate outward and that we can kind of link arms. So staying encouraged, I think that would be it, Dr. Reese.
That was
Keep
awesome.
on keeping on.
Keep on keeping on and flap those wings. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is Nachaé Jones. I'm Dr. Bryan Reese. In Clayton County Public Schools, we're building a better tomorrow today.